This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 145. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. I'm so happy to be here with you. It is a very, very late Sunday night. I am working. It seems to be that I'm not managing my time very well. And so I figured I would come in on a Sunday night and just catch up from last week so I can start the week off well and then make sure that doesn't happen again. And so I'm telling you this because I think that we're all in a stage right now where we're tweaking things. We're trying to figure out what's the new schedule and how to adapt to that and how to make things work. And so here I am, hanging out with you on a Sunday evening. I am very happy to be here and speak with you about the 5 things or 5 thoughts you need to watch out for during COVID-19 or any time at all, right? Before we start, let's do the I Did a Hard Thing segment for the week. This is actually one by a dear friend of mine, Sean, and he tells the story about him saying, Kim, I did a hard thing. I know I've been meaning to do it for the longest time, but I did it. I spoke out on social media. He did this amazing tutorial on social media. It was so great, and I was so proud of him because this was a really hard thing for him and a massive step. But I really think that when we make those really big steps, we start to learn that the world can hold space for us, even if we're not perfect, as you all do for me every single week. So that is the I Did a Hard Thing. Well done, Sean. I am super impressed with you. All right, let's get started. Okay, take a little breath. All right, here are the 5 thoughts I want you to watch out for during COVID-19. These are thoughts that have come up a lot in my office, a lot in my head, and I really wondered if they were coming up for you. So here we go. Number 1, I cannot handle this. Now, I talked about this a lot in last week's podcast, or actually 2 weeks ago, episode 143. But this is a really important one because this sentence alone can decide how well you cope, right? So if you tell yourself, I can't handle this, the chances are you probably won't. You probably won't handle it because you've pretty much given yourself a limit and you won't let yourself go beyond it, right? If you're going to say, I can't do it, I can't handle it, you probably won't. What I would love for you to switch that to is I can do hard things, right? We don't have to do it well. We don't have to do it perfectly. In some cases, we can sort of just whack it together. I've talked to you guys about whacking things together before, and this is the time to whack things together, right? So can you handle it? You absolutely can handle it. When I am in a session with a client and they're doing a hard thing, they're exposing themselves to a hard thing, they will often say, I can't. And I will say, yes, you can. You're not going to explode, right? This is an opportunity for growth, right? And if they continue to say they can't, then I would actually challenge them with, it sounds like what you're saying is you won't, right? That's a really hard truth, but it's a really important one to know, right? Usually when we say we can't, it means we won't, right? So if we would put it in this sentence, it's not I can't handle this, it's I won't handle this, right? And we can actually easily flip that on its butt and say, I can handle this, right? Even if you don't believe it, you can still say it, right? And even if in the past it hasn't been the truth, you can still say it about this time, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is I am going to go crazy indoors, or I am going to go crazy in this quarantine, or I'm going to go crazy with safety in place. A lot of my clients and patients have said this to me, and I always hold up my hand and I'm like, hold up. That sentence alone is setting you up for failure, right? If you're telling yourself you're going to go crazy, right? Is that actually what you mean? Do you actually mean, usually when people say crazy, they're speaking of some kind of like psychosis or hallucination or delusion. That's what we use that word for incorrectly, but that's what people say. And is that true? Is it possible that this is going to cause you that? And if not, let's be really careful about the words we use, right? You might want to switch this to, it's hard for me to be indoors, or it is a challenge for me to be indoors. But we have to be really careful about how much we overestimate or catastrophize things, particularly in this time of our lives when things are very scary. We have to be very careful about the way we use our words. The other thing here is, if you're constantly telling yourself you're indoors, you're going to probably feel very claustrophobic, very cooped up, very controlled. But what I really want to stress to everyone is safety in place, which is pretty much the whole of the United States, and I know in Australia and many, many countries. I know there are countries where this is not the case, but safety in place does allow you to go outdoors. You could go outdoors every 20 minutes if you wanted, as long as you're not within 6 feet of somebody. And in California now, as long as you have a mask on, right? So I think that if we're telling ourselves that we're indoors, like let's say we're going into week 5 of safety in place. If I said I've been indoors for 5 weeks, that's going to feel really depressing. But if I say I've been in safety in place where I've had the opportunity to take a walk every day for 5 weeks, that's a whole different story, but it's correct, right? It's not that I'm even lacing this with over positivity. This is actually the truth, right? So I want you to watch out for that, the words that you say about how cooped up you are. And if you're actually not getting out, I really encourage you to, because it's super, super healthy. It's really important for your mental health. And if you're not in a country where that's okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking directly to you right now, but if you're allowed to go outside, I encourage you to, right? Even if it's just to sit on your front doorstep, right? All right, number 3, when will it end? Whoa, this one is bad. Okay, so I don't blame anyone for having this thought. In fact, I've had it myself. In fact, I've Googled it myself a couple of times, I'm not going to lie. We're all trying to figure out how 2020 is going to be. Where will my kids go back to school before summer? Will they go back to school before the fall? What's going to happen? And it's totally normal to ask those questions. So the question in and of itself is not a problem. But the problem lies in when we expect to get an answer, because nobody has this answer, right? If you're spending a lot of time trying to solve this one sentence, you're probably going to be very disappointed and very frustrated and really anxious, because you'll be getting many, many people's different opinions, and you probably won't be getting the information you want because nobody really knows. So while I say everyone's going to ask these questions, what I really would encourage you to do, the kind, compassionate, mindful thing to do, would be do your best to stay very present, right? Just plan this week. I'm not going to plan summer in America. I'm not going to plan June and July. I'm just going to plan this week. And I'm going to look at what happened last week, and I'm going to adapt and make some little changes and tweaks to where I know I need to do more self-care, or I need to do a little bit more admin, or I need to get some more exercise, or less this or more that. That's fine, right? We're tweaking it. We're not going to be perfect. But try not to insist on getting answers of any kind, right? Of any kind, right? All right, number 4, life will never be the same. I've had a lot of my patients and clients, tear up at this. And I don't blame you if you've really struggled with this, with grieving the change in our life, grieving that life won't look the same, right? And so the reason I've put this here, it's not that it's wrong, right? It's not that it's incorrect. It's just I want you to look out for it, right? Keep a close eye on it. Be very mindful of this thought because it can paint a very dark picture, right? We are creatures of habit. We like to know what has happened will continue to happen. Or if we didn't like what happened, we like to believe and try to not make it happen. But if we take this narrative of life will never be the same, that will instill a lot of anxiety in you and more grief, right? More grief. And there's so much grief right now, so much loss. And so I really have to be careful of this myself. One thing I like to remind myself is life was never going to be the same anyway, right? I think the truth is life has changed since the minute you were born. It's just that we didn't see it like in these time limits, these sort of like very concrete time limits. And so I think this whole idea of like life will never be the same, I totally get it, and I'm not discounting that. But I think it's important that we also remind ourselves that we actually didn't have certainty of what life was going to look like before this anyway. The days are always changing. The water's always different in the river. And that's a really important piece to keep an eye on, right? So regarding life will never be the same, put your hand on your heart, right? Receive and give yourself as much compassion as you can, because it's a really hard time and we are wrestling with some really big sentences here, right? I'm not taking this lightly. I don't think that it's as simple as me saying, that's incorrect, don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these are really big topics, but we can really be careful about how we use them. The last one, number 5, the 5th thing I want you to watch out for during COVID-19 is simply, I should. I should do this. I should do that. I should be handling it better. I should be, perfect. I should be handling that perfectly, right? I should be losing 15 pounds. I should be learning Spanish. I should be cleaning my house. No, we are in a pandemic. This is where you wrap yourself in kindness and give yourself permission to not put expectations on yourself that aren't doable, right? The truth is, if you have the capacity to clean your house, if that was something you would should yourself on, you would. If you don't, it's because you didn't have the energy or the bandwidth or the mental space to wrap your head around a massive, massive like a project, right? It's just not possible. Right now, it's not the time for me to start a new project, right? Whether that be a work project or a physical project of my own or a personal development project, it's not the time, right? Now's the time to sort of double down on kindness and strength and courage and, being of service to other people if that's important to you, right? Again, I don't want to put any more shoulds on your list with this list, but I think it's really important that we watch out for the I shoulds and replace it with I could, right? I could clean out the garage, but then you can say, but where I am right now, it's just not going to happen, right? Instead of saying I should be handling this better, you could say I could be handling it better, but I'm doing the best I can with what I have, right? Instead of saying I shouldn't feel grief, right? You could say I could feel grief, right? I can. I'm allowed. I'm allowed to feel whatever I want, right? That's really, really important. And so, maybe let's just drop the should if you can. I would really love it if you would, just because I think that it would make for a much safer mind and body for you to live in until this is all over, right? Okay. So that's the 5 thoughts I want you to watch out for during COVID-19. Some of them you may not have done at all, but I really felt that it was important to address these 5 because it's so easy to fall into those traps, right? So easy. So I don't know. I think that if you can, once again, just put your hand on your heart. Let's just do this one step at a time, imperfectly, together, courageously. Let's just do it that way, right? One step at a time, imperfectly and courageously. That's doable, right? That's real. That's the truth, right? Okay, I'm signing off. I shall speak with you next week. For those of you who don't know, you can go over to cbtschool.com. We have a ton of free resources there. We also still have ERP School open. I reopened registration for ERP School, the online course, because so many people right now are struggling and really needed some resources because there are very few out there right now. So I opened that back up. If you feel that it would benefit you, by all means, go and check it out at cbtschool.com. It's also got, like I said, free resources and a bunch of other things on there as well. So sending you love, and it's a beautiful day to do the hard thing. Just the one hard thing, right? No plural. It's a beautiful day to do the hard thing. Talk to you soon. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.